Okay, so we're going to carry on with our cart. So we've got the first page done. So we can see our categories. These links don't work or go anywhere right now because we want to go to our browse method. That method doesn't exist yet. So we need a browse method that takes a category string parameter in and then loads a view and displays all the products for that category. So I'll go back to my So I'm going to make a new method called browse. So our index method takes no parameters. Our browse method is going to take a string parameter, which is the category the user clicked on. We don't want to show them all the products. We only want to show them the products. If they click appliances, we only want to show them appliances. So we're going to write a similar query to what we did in our index, except we're going to use a where clause so we can filter based on the category. So in this case, we'll return a list of products. So we're going to have a where. So our p.category.name is equal to our category parameter that's passed in. And then we can also order by product name. So this gives us a list of products filtered by the selected category and put in alphabetical order. And then we can just return it. So get products A to Z from selected category and pass to view. So we could scaffold another list view, but we're going to have to make so many changes. It's probably easier just to scaffold an empty view, put in the model as a list of products, and then we can literally copy and paste the view code that displayed the categories. We'll just modify it to display products instead. We'll have to make only a couple of changes. So we'll just compile. And then we can scaffold our browse view. So we'll add a view, which we'll call browse. So we'll leave the template as empty. We'll just make sure it uses the layout page. So we don't need to pick anything here. Just call it browse. So this is going to give us an empty view. We'll populate the model. We'll copy and paste the HTML from the index view. So in here, I'll declare model. So we want it to be IEnumerable because we're getting a list of type lowballers.models.products. Sorry, that should be a capital L. No, it's actually lowercase there. Okay, I'm going to ignore this error. I'm pretty confident we're doing it correctly. We'll leave the heading for now. And now I'm just going to go and copy this whole block of code. And we only actually have to change one thing. We just need to change our link. So instead of going to shop, we want to go to an action which we'll make called product details. And instead of passing in a category, we're going to pass in a product name. I'm going to run it. I actually think it will run. I don't know why Visual Studio's complaining. I think this should actually work. We'll try it. So I've changed the action from browse to product details, and I've changed my parameter name from category to product. So we want to see a list of products, and when the user clicks them, we want to take them to a product detail screen where they see all the info about the product. And actually, then there'll be one more thing we'll want to add on here, but we'll see if this actually works. Now, I don't really know what products are in my database. I guess we could have a quick look at the database to see. I think we created some products. I'm not sure which category they're in. We'll have a look. Okay, so we've got a couple in tech and a couple in sports equipment. So if I click on sports equipment, we should hopefully get our two products. So I get my two products here. Now these links won't be active until we make our product details. I'm going to add two things to this page. One is we should display the prices. It's not that useful to users. They see the product names. They have no idea how much the products cost. So I want to add the prices. I also want to add the category name here. So we could maybe stick it in the view bag and display it in the page title. So I don't know why Visual Studio doesn't like this. So underneath here, I'll put in a small heading. And we're going to use a currency format with our item.price. So we're going to show the product price below the name. So we get this. Maybe it's a little big. Maybe I want to use something like an H6 tag. Might be better. Excuse me. Yeah, that's better. I'm also going to use the view bag to display to pull the category name from our parameter and display it on the top of our page, so the user knows what category they're shopping. So we'll go back to our shop controller. And in the browse method, we'll store a category name in the view bag to display on the page heading. So we'll just grab this string value, stick it in the view bag so we can pass it back to the UI. So we'll build, and then we can output viewbag.category right here. Let's see, browse. We can actually just include it right here. So it becomes part of that H1. If it's sports equipment, it says browse sports equipment. So if I refresh, this should now say browse tech. Normally, we'd want to show the product images here as well. We haven't really gotten around to doing that. I don't know that we'll have time to do it. So I'm going to move on without the images for now. So this should load. It should update my heading here. So now we get the category name. So this page is done. Mostly a copy and paste job with a few little tweaks. So now we want to make these links functional. We're going to need to make, you can see in our HTML, they're going to call product details and pass in the name of the product. So that's our next step, is make a method called product details that takes in a string parameter of product. We run a query to look up the specific product, pass it back to the user, and then we can scaffold out that view using the product details template. So it'll build most of the page for us. And again, we'll have to make a few changes to it. So in my controller, I'll make a third method called product details. And it takes a string parameter, but unlike browse, which takes the category name, this page takes a product name. So we're going to get selected product and pass to the view. Now I don't want to use the where function because where potentially will return multiple objects. If I want just one, I can use single or default. So just return one, and if there's no match, just return an empty object. And then we just set in our where p.name is equal to product. We don't need to list because we're not returning. Oh, whoops. I've used product twice. I've already called my parameter product, so I can't name my variable product. I'll call it selected product. My error goes away. So product represents my name, the incoming name. Selected product is the object that we find. And then we'll just pass that object to the UI. And now we can scaffold out this view. Josh? Because your debugging skills are better than my coding skills. Thank you. Much better. Nice catch, thank you. So we'll build, and then we can use scaffolding, generate most of this view for us. We'll have to make a couple changes, but not too many. So we'll build. Now I can add the view. Which template should we use? Yeah, let's use the details template. It gives the user a read-only version of the product page. It'll display all of the fields for the product. So we'll pick details. Our model class is products. So this will have an automatic model declaration at the top, model lowballers.models.product. A single product object gets passed to this view. So just add this view. So the name's product details, because that matches our method name. Template is details, model class, product. We'll add it. And we'll have to we should be able to load the product details now, but we'll have to make a couple of changes to it. Not too many. So our model is type product, and it sets up all the properties with a couple of links. So if I click on one of these products, we should be able to, oh, I may have to go back to my shop. Okay, so now if I click a product, we should get the details page. So here's the scaffolded page. We probably want to change the heading a little bit. We can probably hide. We can remove photo and category for now. We'll get rid of the edit link. We might want to have a back button, but the back button isn't great because it takes us all the way back to the beginning. So, you know, if I'm browsing a category, I look up one product, I probably want to go back to the same category. So we'll want to change that link so it goes here instead. Just goes back one page to the previous list. Yep, Kip. We could. I'll add it here, and then you can copy and paste it. It'll work the same way. We basically want to go back as if we click back in the browser, so we don't lose the data on the previous page. So we can use a little JavaScript for that. And then we need to add a quantity input that's numeric and an add to cart button. Because right now the user, they can look at the product, but they can't do anything. And the whole point is we want people putting stuff in their shopping cart. Josh and then Peter. Oh, it's because it's the parent value, so we would need to include it here. We need to say dot include. I'm not sure why we're not getting the include. To think about that, it should come because it scaffolds, but the value isn't there. You had a question?
Yeah. Today, are we getting to the point where we're actually going to be, I guess, not putting in like payment stuff?
Not today. Because we're going to have to finish adding to cart and then just displaying the cart. That's going to take, and if we have time, maybe removing from cart. So we're not going to have time to do more than that today. I would hope so. I'd allocated 2 classes to unit testing because we've got 3 classes left. I'd allocated 2 classes to unit testing. Unit testing in .NET Core is a fair bit simpler than in the .NET framework. We can so I was going to start unit testing next week. We can probably push that for a week. So we could finish the cart and do payment next week. Then we can do unit testing in one class on Web API, which is also short. So yeah, I would think we can get to it next week. Okay, so I'm going to take out my edit link. I'm also going to change my back. We don't want to go back to index. We just want to go to the previous page. So we can actually use a little JavaScript hack here where we set an href and we point it to JavaScript : and we call a built-in function of JavaScript called history.go. This is the exact equivalent of clicking the back button in your browser once. Goes to the previous loaded page in its current state. It doesn't reload it, just pulls it from cache. So that way, if we're looking at a list of products in a category, it just takes us back to that same list. Doesn't have to do a reload.
So is that technically considered inline JavaScript? Because I know Scott looked at you or
Yep.
put inline JavaScript in there.
Yeah, if you want, you could put it in. We have a scripts.js file, so you could put that function in there. And I'll just change it to say back. And I'll maybe give it a class. I'll make it into a button of BTN primary. So it's going to look like a button, use our theme. And if we click it, it just goes back one in the browser. Yes, built into JavaScript, part of the JavaScript library. Yep. Yeah, but if we did that, it would then refresh the page and query the database all over again to rebuild it. By clicking back, it's using cache. So it just goes straight back here with no reload. It's super fast. So yes, you could do it that way, but if you create it as a link and pass the category back, the page is going to reload again, which means going to the database, running the query, fetching the data. So I'm also going to add here a button. We'll give it a class of offset 2. It'll move it over a little bit to the right, so it's underneath all our inputs. This will be our add to cart button. So now we'll have 2 blue buttons, one that says add to cart and one that goes back. So it'll look like this. Sorry. So the offset moves the buttons over here rather than over here. I'm going to take out, actually, I'm going to take these out. Because it's in the same div. So it's the. Sure, you could. Yep. If you want it, you can move it around. So I'm going to take out the section for category, and the section for photo, I'm going to change that. So I'm going to change this to say quantity. And I'm going to change this display for photo. I'm going to change this into an input. So name is quantity, ID is quantity, type is number, min is 1, and it's required. So if the user wants to add to cart, they've got to type a number in this or use the little up and down arrows the browser will give us. And they can't pick less than 1 and add something to their cart. Now this won't actually work yet. There's one thing we're missing. We need one other HTML element in order to allow users to add to their cart. Yeah, we need a form tag. Actually, we need 2 things. We need a form around it. So I'll put this whole thing in a form, and I'll use the ASP action of add to cart. And I'll move my closing tag all the way down to the bottom. And Visual Studio then nests everything inside. So we've got our form, and this page needs one more thing. So our form includes the quantity, but we also need the product ID, because this page loads on product details. It's going to make the post request to a method called add to cart. And to add to cart, not only do we need the quantity, we need to know what the product ID is. So what I'm going to do is in my form, I'm going to add a hidden field called product ID. Whoops. And for the value, I'll use @model.product ID. I do want to make it type hidden. So this value is included in my form when we post it to add to cart. So we know the quantity they want, and we know which product it is. Visual Studio doesn't like it. I think it's going to be fine.
Maybe it's just missing an include.
It isn't, actually. So I'll refresh. If I use capital M model, that's the other fix. So when I do capital M model, it recognizes the product model with product ID. So now I should be able to submit my form, but we'll get a 404 error because it's going to post to an add to cart method. That method doesn't yet exist. So 404 would be the expected behavior at this point, right? So I've made it required. So if I try and submit add to cart without picking a number, if I hit the down arrow, I can't go below 1. They're really small. The up arrow's on the top. So now if I add to cart, it doesn't go anywhere because we don't have an add to cart method yet. So it just stays here. So now we can start our add to cart method. So most of the changes we made down at the bottom. The only change up above is I created a form with the ASP action equal to add to cart. So I'll leave this up for a minute in case anybody needs to check their form. If you need to see the form tag at the top, let me know and I'll scroll up so you can see it. So our next step is to add the add to cart method, where we're going to take in the quantity, take in the product, look up the current price, and then save this item to the database. Does anybody still need to see this form, or can we go back to the controller and start the add to cart method? Okay, so we'll go to our controller. So we're going to take in 2 integers, quantity and product ID. We also need to declare that this method uses HTTP post. So this isn't running a get. This method only gets called when there's a post request made to the URL cart/add to cart. We also want to protect it from cross-site scripting attacks. So we're going to add this annotation validate anti-forgery token. This ensures that any post request comes from the same domain that our site runs on. Okay. Let's go back. I think we quickly looked at this back in week 6. Actually, I'll show you where to find it. So I'll go over this briefly, Tolu, but I can show you where you can read more. Okay. So in week 6, we put this item up here, the OWASP top 10, which were the top 10 web application security problems. Yeah, so in here, my course link's too slow. I could probably just pull it up. So here was our cross-site scripting attack, I think, is number 6 on this list.
I think it's when they inject CSS, not CSS, JavaScript or other type of server script code into a request.
It's here, a cross-site request forgery. Or cross-site scripting. Yeah, so this basically prevents cross-site request forgery. So let's say,
Kind of like an SQL.
not exactly. Okay, let me show you how this works. So let's say we have so you've got a login form on Tolu.com. Okay. So you have a get and a post. Let's say you built this site in Node, right? So we just in our Node site, we have a get and a post. Get loads the form and post processes the login. So here we've got get and post. So what I could do is I could make a page, right? I make my own login page, and in there I make a form that looks like this. Right? So my form is going to post to your login post method. So I can try through my form I can make submissions from my own server. I can submit data to yours. And that's a potential, there's a potential for me to compromise your site by posting data to your form, your receipt page. Well, also on Tolu's login form, he can validate what people put in the username and password fields. If I make my own form, he's got no control over what I might try to send in.
They'll send in, I think popular one would be to send like
SQL injection, for example. I could send a username of drop table users and see if I can get that to run by posting it. So what this validate anti-forgery token does is it says, make sure any post requests that come in to our domain /shop/add to cart originate, the request is coming from the same domain that's receiving the request. Okay. So it generates a token on the server and it checks the server. So it checks the request for that same token. If it doesn't have it, it will block it. That will prevent me from doing this, posting from a different domain over to this one. So all our posts should have this. And if we look at the scaffolding, so in our categories controller, for example, we've got post methods for create and edit, and you notice it's already in here. Anywhere you see HTTP post, it's included that validate anti-forgery token. So we should use this for any post method in .NET because it helps prevent those cross-site forgery attacks. Yes. Yeah. So it comes with .NET, so we may as well use it. Okay. So first thing we're going to have to do is get the price. Get the current product price from the database. So we'll use the product ID, we'll look up the product, and we'll store the price in a variable. So I'll use single or default. And then we'll just take the price property and store it in a local variable. Right? When somebody adds to their cart, we need to know what the current price is because the price might change. You know, we can buy something today. We need to know what price was that today. So if we look up our order history, it's not showing a more expensive price later on. So now we will create and save a new cart object. So I'm going to create an object and we can just fill the properties. So our quantity is going to come from the form. And so is our product ID. So these are the two input parameters of our method, right? These things are embedded in our form on the product details page. So we're going to know how many do they want and which product is it. So these two values are coming from these two inputs, one that's visible and one that's hidden. We need to set the price. Well, we can just use our price variable that we created here. The other thing we have is a username. We'll come back to the username. For now, I'm just going to hard code in a user because we have several different scenarios. Logged in user, anonymous user, a user who already has something in their cart versus a user who has nothing in their cart. So for right now, I'm just going to hard code this in. We'll change this after. We just want to see if we can actually add an item to the cart and save to the database first. So we'll populate our new object, and then we use our context dot carts, and we'll add our new cart object. And to commit that to the database, we just call save changes. So when line 63 executes, this should actually insert a new record into the cart table. We're adding the new object to the collection and then using Entity Framework to save. Now we still have an error here because we still haven't indicated what happens, where do we take the user, or what happens after we save. When you're shopping online, once you put something in your cart, what do you typically expect to happen next? Okay, so we could refresh the page with a message. That's one option. Okay, we could do that. Yep. We could take them to the categories page, or we could also take them, the user, to the cart page. We could create a page that shows them the current contents of their cart, shows them all the items, shows them the total, and gives them options to keep shopping or check out. So we'll maybe do that. Those are all good options. Nothing wrong with any of the things you guys have suggested.
But I think, yeah, the pop-up one, I find that becoming more common because people don't like having to constantly click the continue shopping button.
Yeah, the one challenge in our case is we're going to have to use a fair bit of, we're going to have to use Ajax and CSS to pop it up. So for simplicity, we'll just create it. I agree, it's a better user experience to just pop the card up on the current page. But for simplicity, we'll maybe create a separate page for that. So in this case, we'll do a redirect. Whoops, sorry, to return. We're going to redirect to action cart. So we're going to have to create this method. So very quickly, we can just create an empty. Actually, you know what? We don't even need to do it yet. We can just let it generate a 404 error. So now we can try that add to cart and see if anything actually shows up in the database. So I will go back. We can probably also put a space here, and we don't need this heading here. So if I refresh this page, we can try and add it to cart and see if anything gets saved to SQL Server. Okay, so I'm gonna put 2 of these in my cart at $99.99. So we should get a 404 error because it's trying to redirect to cart. And we have no route called cart. However, hopefully our save code actually worked before this error got generated. So if I want to view my carts, I now have 1 item here with the right product ID. Price was $99.99. I picked 2 for my quantity, and my username field, which we'll deal with in a bit, says temp username. If I put something else in my cart, I'll go back.
I guess most stores would have a bunch of relationships with carts would have items would have.
Which we will, because when I put the second one in, the items are related based on my username. So I should be able to then build the cart page that will show both of these items. Obviously, hard-coding the username isn't really going to work, but we'll deal with the logic of this in a bit. So it's 10 to 3. I need some water. We will take a pause. I'll upload everything, add the video to the playlist, and we'll deal with the username when we come back. And then we can build out the cart page that shows what's in the cart. Sorry? Well, it's more that, I mean, we want to store the price as they're shopping, because I might buy an item today for $99.99, and then let's say I check out, and then next week that item goes on sale. If I go to my order and we just pull the current price, it'll show $79.99, but I paid $99.99. So we need to track the price as people are shopping, because those prices may change later.